Hi everyone, I'm Robert Carr. I have a new approach to answering questions about philosophy. I call it an evolutionary approach to philosophy. We need a new approach to philosophy because there's not been much recent progress using the standard approach. Probably because philosophers listen too much to physicists who constantly dabble in philosophy. They should instead look to biologists or biochemists. They actually study bodies and brains rather than galaxies or quarks. Another problem with the usual approach, philosophers think that philosophy should begin and end with the study of the human mind. Our biological nature and background are usually given little concern, and our fellow living creatures don't really count at all. This view started with the ancient Greeks, was reinforced by the early Christian philosophers, and held sway through the Enlightenment up to the present. I believe a more useful approach would be to consider how humans evolved this huge brain. This is more directly relevant to most any question about the human mind than, say, particle physics. Also, humans are so complicated and racked with subjective biases that it makes some questions like, what is the nature of consciousness, intractable. For these larger questions in philosophy, evolution by natural selection should be regarded as a law of nature, just like Newtonian motion. Why do physicists think that planetary motion and particles should be more related to consciousness or free will than evolution? Since evolutionary philosophy is a new approach, as I consider the following 5 questions here, I will forego the seemingly obligatory historical development and go right into the evolutionary philosophy outlook. So let's get started and look at some philosophical questions. First, what is the nature of consciousness? How are we self-aware? Well, all life forms perceive and respond to their environment, but consciousness also implies a purposeful control of these responses to stimuli. Are humans the only organism that can do this? Undoubtedly not. Pet owners almost invariably talk to their pets, not because they think they understand our speech, rather because the owners recognize and acknowledge their pet's sentience. The consciousness issue will never be tractable until we understand the basic functions of the brain down to the molecular level, how it gathers, processes, stores, retrieves, and uses information. Subjective introspection or the current methods of neurobiologists might never provide answers to these more fundamental questions. Experimenting using lower animals has much more promise in this regard. Some work on these lines is being done, but should be greatly expanded given the importance of the question to human philosophical understanding. The second interesting question is, what is the nature of this reality? Specifically, is there an objective reality, or is reality a result of subjective experience? The immediate answer to that is that evolution is incompatible with a subjective reality. Here's why. All living organisms perceive and respond to their environment. They also adapt to their environment over generations by natural selection. It would be illogical to think that an organism's adaptation to an environment could be subjectively driven. Subjectivists often make the mistake of not considering how lower animals and plants perceive this objective reality. No organisms, including humans, has perfect perception of reality, but evolution does not select for perfect perception, just the perception that is most adaptive given the alternatives. Human perception is complicated by layers of information processing that occurs in our oversized brains. But the result is still an interpretation of a real world. If you can't see why this is the case, leave a comment and I'll address the question in more detail in an upcoming video. A third logical question would be, is this objective reality deterministic or not? This is a hotly debated question in philosophy because it impinges on the idea of human free will and morality. I'll do a separate video on this topic, but let me give you the quick answer. Life negates determinism. Sorry, all you determinists. Why is this so? Well, life is disentropic, meaning that it runs counter to entropy, the tendency of systems to become disorganized and lose information. Life produces order and information in the environment using a constant input of high-energy photons we get from the sun. These photons originate in the photosphere of the sun, and during their travel through the sun's photosphere and chromosphere, through our atmosphere and the cell cytoplasm, the plethora of quantum interactions, such as diffraction and scattering, renders the light nearly perfectly random. So my question for the strict determinists is this: how do these random light waves interact with the matter of a system to increase the order and information of that system? Life is such a system, and it is evolution by natural selection that provides the required information to make the continuing chemical reactions that we call life possible. The light of the sun does not and has never contained the information to make so much as a single hamster. But random light waves and basic chemicals can make a hamster and all other life forms, past and present, through evolution by natural selection in a mere 3.5 billion years. Other biological processes also appear, and I believe are, random. The independent assortment of chromosomes during mitosis and meiosis, crossing over, gene transduction, even egg fertilization are probabilistic, not determined. Do you remember the Punnett squares in high school biology used to give the ratio of alleles in heredity? A good lesson in probability. So life itself, all of biology, stands against determinism. Does the probabilistic nature of biology make free will possible? Well, you'll have to watch my upcoming video for the answer. Just a hint, a lot depends on how we define free will. The final question that I want to consider is the more important question. How can evolutionary philosophy be useful in guiding us through our lives? Again, I'll only give an abbreviated discussion here and leave the details for future videos. But from an evolutionary standpoint, each individual should contribute to the continuation and flourishing of the human species. To do this, an individual should use and develop those traits that make us humans. This is not some moral imperative, but rather a suggestion as to how each person can practice their humanity in order to lead a happy and meaningful life. The 4 most important traits that I can think of are: 1. Intelligence, including language, abstract reasoning, curiosity, and logic. We should all use this intelligence, rather than dogma or superstition. 2. Social organization. Humans have a great ability to act together, to cooperate and compete with others to the betterment of all individuals. So, become a valued part of society. 3. Industriousness. Humans make tools, build things, explore, and teach. You should devote much of the waking day to this work. Number 4, aesthetics. Humans, unlike any other animals, take joy from the creation and appreciation of art, music, drama, and sports. Enjoy these to the fullest extent possible. Considering all of these traits and their ramifications, you need to balance your time and efforts between making the world and our future better and enjoying life and the arts to their fullest. This is a balance between honoring the ancestors of our past and providing for the future of our progeny. We have to be mindful that each individual will express these competing traits in differing proportions. You have hedonists on one side, focusing on enjoying the present, and ascetics on the other that work and sacrifice for the future. But most people will be more fulfilled some area in between the two. If we are mindful of our humanity, there is every reason to think that human progress will continue. This realization may be enough reason to put aside the thoughts of our own mortality. That's all I have for now, but this is just the first video in this series. Later videos We'll add additional details, explanations, and examples to the major points covered here. I'll also use this philosophical approach to answer more practical questions on topics like abortion, sexuality, and group identity. So subscribe to see more of this really neat stuff.